Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Benji-Sales live chat. It's so good to be back. It is so good to see everybody. How are you doing today? I hope you're all doing fantastic. I hope you're all doing amazing. It's great to see you, everybody. Expecting a pretty low-key stream today, if I'm being honest, which shouldn't be surprising. This has been a very empty news week for the video game industry, which, to be honest, that's to be expected because we're in that period of time, you know, right between the holidays and New Year. Pretty much everybody's either on vacation right now or, you know, they're saving their big announcements, their big reveals for next year, right? Because it's right around the corner. So very slow news week. So with that in mind, I'm expecting this chat, you know, it's always interactive, but to be pretty darn interactive. I've got like 5 polls already lined up for ideas that I want to do. And I thought today we could talk about basically what we expect to go down next year, right? Might as well. It's going to be the last stream of the year for me. That doesn't mean we're not going to be back next week. It's just quite literally next week we'll be in 2024. So this will be the last stream of the year. So why not focus mostly on what's to come next year? There's going to be a bunch of games. Like I said, I've got a bunch of polls lined up. One for PlayStation, one for Xbox, one for Nintendo, and then some third-party stuff. And we can always add more if we get into more topics. But as always, we don't have to talk about that. We can talk about whatever you guys want. So if this is your first time for some very rare or random reason as part of my live chat, the way it works, it's a stream, it's a show, 100% driven by you. Your comments, your questions, you just drop them down into chat and we talk about the video game industry. There's going to be a few ways to do that. Of course, there is the free method. You just type a question, whatever you want, pops into chat and I get to as many free questions as I possibly can. If you want to guarantee, though, that I get to your comment or question, there's going to be 2 ways to do that. First of all, there is the super chat method. You type a donation, whatever you want. It pops into chat and I get to super chats immediately. The other way to guarantee that you get at least one comment or question highlighted in the stream is going to be by becoming a channel member. Channel memberships are $4.99 a month. And basically what it does is it gives you priority in the chat. I guarantee every single channel member that they'll get at minimum one question or comment highlighted every single stream. And oftentimes channel members get way more than one, focused on. So those are all the different ways you can do whatever. I don't really have a ton of big news topics to talk about off the top, right? Usually these streams start and I spend the first like 5-10 minutes kind of highlighting the big news items of the week. But as I said, there essentially is no news items this week. Or if there is, they're very small. They're very low key. So we're just going to dive straight into the chat this week. We're diving straight in. So start filling that chat up. Like I said, I'm expecting this to be pretty low key, not expecting a huge turnout or anything like that today. A lot of people are probably busy with family and stuff like that. Plus, like I said, no major news topics, but we can still chat. I didn't want to miss a stream, right? If I had been more consistent recently, maybe this would have been the week to skip a live chat. But considering I didn't stream for like 2 months, I wasn't going to allow myself to miss another stream already so quickly. So let's go. Let's get rocking and rolling, baby. Already see Split End in chat. What is up, Split End 89? Great to see you, buddy. Of course, a great friend of mine. Always helps mod the channel and also does great work at Gaming Trend. You're the man, Split End. Timmer dropping a 5 super chat off the top. Great to see you, Timmer. Thank you so much for that super chat, buddy. Saying, keep up the great work, Benji. You are the man. You are also the man, Timmer. Looking forward to everything you research, post, and tweet in 2024. Great to see you, buddy. Thanks for being so supportive as always. Benji dropping a 5 super chat. Great to see you, Benji. Hi, Benji. Switch 2 is for sure coming next year. Predictions for price, release month, and launch day, titles, and who will be more affected, PlayStation or Xbox. I really like that last part there. That's an interesting wrinkle. And that'll kick us off with actually the first poll idea I had. I'm actually going to ask you guys the same poll question that I did on Twitter. Or X, or whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to ask, when will Nintendo reveal the Switch 2? All right, Switch 2, of course. Who the heck knows what this thing's going to be called? And we're going to separate it by quarter for the first 3 quarters because they obviously wouldn't announce it during a holiday quarter. And then I'm going to give you a 4th option. So we're going to say sometime between January and March. We're going to say April to June. We're going to say July to September. Jeez, my brain's not working. And then we're going to say no Switch 2 in 2024, because obviously they wouldn't announce the Switch 2 in October or something like that if it was going to launch in the holiday. That's just too late. Nintendo likes to, you know, be a little bit daring or different, but they wouldn't announce it later than September if it was coming out in 2024. So when will Nintendo reveal the Switch 2? Will it be sometime January through March? In other words, Q1, April through June, Q2, July through September, Q3, or you just think there isn't even going to be a Switch 2 next year? All right, so first poll's in the chat. And let's break down everything Benji asked here. All right, so let's go one at a time. Predictions for price. I'm expecting the Switch 2 to launch $100 more than what the Switch 1 launched at. So in other words, $400, right? Switch 1 launched at $299. I'm expecting a $399 launch for the Switch 2. Couple reasons for that. It does appear that Switch 2 is a little bit more powerful in terms of like, listen, when Switch 1 launched, it was like severely underpowered even at launch. Now it was basically probably the best hardware you could get in that sort of envelope for the price tag Nintendo was looking at. But like the day that thing launched, it was already pretty archaic in a lot of ways. But I think the Switch 2 is going to be a lot more modernized compared to what the Switch 1 was at launch. Keep in mind, like I said before, I'm not expecting Switch 2 to, you know, look like a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X in terms of graphics, but I do think Switch 2 will just be more modernized hardware compared to its contemporaries than Switch 1 was. So you've got the better hardware, and then the thing that can't be ignored is inflation, right? Inflation went crazy. It does feel like things are finally starting to, like, you know, chill out in that regard, but still, you know, inflation happened massively, and that's going to also affect, you know, price. So I think Nintendo's going to launch Switch 2 at $400. I'd be shocked if they can come in lower than that. If they do, amazing. I don't think Nintendo would be crazy enough to launch their console at $500. I just couldn't see that happening, especially for the sort of demographics that Nintendo likes to target. You know, they want to make sure that families can get a hold of this. They want to make sure that younger kids are able to get some version of it. And once you start going into like the $500 range, then it starts becoming even more difficult. So price, I'm going $400. Release month, I'm going to go... The easy answer here is to say holidays, right? But we saw Switch 1 launch in March. Obviously, that's not going to happen with Switch 2. They're not going to do a Q1 launch on Switch 2. I've toyed with the idea. I wonder if they would go in the summer, which I know sounds super weird. But Nintendo, and I think Switch in particular, and assuming this is Switch 2, if that's how they're going to market and name it, I think it has such raw demand in and of itself. They don't have to go in holidays, right? Holidays is just the traditional way we think about things, but they don't have to do that. We already saw that with Switch 1. That thing launched in March and sold ridiculous gangbusters. Nintendo doesn't have to go holidays. If they want to go whatever month they want, they could stick the thing in July if they want and sell out instantly. There's not a doubt in my mind. But at the same time, the easy answer is to just go holidays. So I'm going to do that. There's a piece of my mind that's like, dude, that would be very interesting if they went for a summer launch, because they could get that huge initial rush of sales out the gate sold out and then give them several more months to build up inventory for the holiday period. To me, in a way, that kind of seems like a cool idea, but I don't think they'll do that. So in the end, I'll go very basic, obvious, and predict it launches in October or November of next year. Launch day titles, Metroid Prime 4, I'm expecting that to be cross-gen, obviously to launch on Switch 1 as well, but I think Metroid Prime 4 will be launch game or launch window. They just did Mario Wonder. A part of me was thinking they would launch with a 3D Mario game, and I know Mario Wonder is not 3D, right? It's a more traditional 2D style Mario. But the fact there was just a Mario makes me now wonder, maybe 3D Mario is not a launch game. Maybe it's Mario Kart. There will be Mario something, right? It's a Nintendo platform. They're going to have some sort of Mario game within that launch window, even if it's not day one, within the first, couple months. So either 3D Mario or Mario Kart, one of those. I'm not expecting a new Zelda, obviously, considering we just had, Tears of the Kingdom. So those are kind of boring answers, but I think those are the two most obvious ones that make the most sense. Metroid Prime 4 and some sort of Mario game, whether that's 3D Mario or Mario Kart. And who does it affect more, PlayStation or Xbox? It's a great question. Potentially of the two, probably PlayStation, just because there's actually a market where those two are kind of head to head, which is Japan, which obviously, Switch 1 absolutely crushed PlayStation 5 in Japan. But what I mean is there's at least some form of competition there. Nintendo and Xbox don't really go head to head in any market. Not really, at least. The closest one, I don't know if either one gets like majorly impacted, but the one that would have the most potential to be impacted to me would be PlayStation. That's just specifically because the Japanese market. Like outside of Japan, I don't think it really matters. Nintendo has differentiated themselves so much from PlayStation and Xbox. Like Nintendo kind of feels like its own thing that sure, there's going to be some competition there, but not massively. So I'll say PlayStation, and specifically just because of the Japanese market. MD has re-upped channel membership for 8 months. Thank you so much, MD. Great to see you, buddy. Missed you, buddy. Friday mornings haven't been the same without you. Sending love to you and your family. You are an inspiration. Just keep going. Well, what kind words from MD. MD's the man. MD's always been, again, one of the most supportive people in this chat forever. It's great to see you too, buddy. I apologize that I was MIA for a little while on the live chats, due to some mental health stuff. But things are like way, way, way better now than they were. So like we're back to rock and rolling, right? We're 3 weeks in a row. We're back in the grind in a good way, and I'm feeling way better. And I'm great to see you, MD. Happy to be part of your Friday morning. Plastic Hearts Podcast, what is up, Plastic Hearts? Back again. It's so great to see you, Plastic Hearts. I know you were gone for a while, so it's great to see you back in the chat, man, with a 5 super chat. Benji Boy, cheers to 24. God of War 1 remake in the news? Your guess on date? Also, UFC 300. You psyched for the matchups. Great to see you, Plastic Hearts. You're, like, again, one of the OG supporters here. Yeah, there are some rumblings that God of War is coming back in some way, like the classic games. There's some rumblings maybe it's going to be a God of War remake. There's some rumblings maybe they're going to remaster, God of War 1 through 3, like maybe not full-on remakes, but some sort of remasters. To me, this actually makes sense. I don't see why you wouldn't. I think either one way you would sell a lot, right? That could be a full-on remake. That could be a remaster. I think either way, if you take those classic God of War games, you're going to sell a bunch of them, right? The franchise is way bigger than it ever was in the past. God of War was always a strong seller in the United States, but a lot of people don't realize this, but outside of the US, God of War, up until like 2018, wasn't a huge franchise in Europe and UK, and maybe some people in Europe are going to try and disagree with that or maybe have a bit of a different opinion, but it's just like kind of laid out. You could look at the split in sales, and God of War was always proportionally, it's not like it didn't sell in Europe, but it was proportionally stronger in the US than it was outside of it. And 2018 really re-energized that franchise globally, right? Now it's become massive in Europe. It's become massive essentially everywhere. And those games are actually old enough now. Like, people forget, man. Like, the original God of War is a straight-up classic game now. Like, it's old. When did God of War release? The original. I mean, it's old, man. 2005, right? We're talking that game's coming up on 20 years old. That is more than long enough time to go for a full-on remake or remaster. There's a ton of people that got into the franchise for the first time with the Norse Saga games. They probably haven't even played the classic Greek mythology games. So yeah, I'd be all for this, Plastic Hearts. Like I said, either way, full-on remake or even just a nice, remaster of the original 3. Either way, I think it'd be successful. My guess on date, I don't know for sure that this sort of thing is actually real or that it's coming next year, but if it is, that's the sort of thing you could launch whenever. If it's a full-on remake, maybe you line that up for the holidays to be like your big holiday game, because for PlayStation right now, it's a bit unknown what they're going to be doing for first party next year. A full-on remake, maybe line that up for the holidays. If it's not a remake and they just do a remaster of the first 3, I think you could put them wherever, right? That can be a game you can launch whenever you want. UFC 300, I'm definitely excited for the matchups they've announced so far. We haven't gotten any massive, main event, co-main event, anything like that announced. There's some rumors that it was going to be Alex Pereira moving up to heavyweight to go for his third belt, fighting Tom Aspinall. However, I saw an interview with Poatan yesterday where he kind of shot that down, and he kind of said, nah, I'm actually not doing that. I'm focused on light heavyweight right now. So it looks like maybe UFC tried to do that, but it looks like that's probably not going to happen. So I'm very excited for 300. It just depends. They really need a massive main event and co-main event, and let's see how it goes. And thanks for that super chat. And that'll actually tie a bit into our second poll. I'll let this poll rock for a few more minutes, and then I'm going to start the second poll, which is going to be on PlayStation. Super chats are cleared. Let's hit the channel memberships. Joseki channel member, what is up, man? Great to see you, Joseki. Again, always so supportive, always in chat, always great sales questions. Yo, Benji, have you read the Famitsu's end-of-year interviews with hundreds of Japanese devs? Multiple devs said the thing they were looking forward to next year was Nintendo's next platform, including people from Koei Tecmo and Capcom. It's basically an open secret at this point that it's coming next year, but with dev kits out, I'm surprised there has been no new major leaks. I'm also surprised by this. I've heard from people the NDA related to that thing is scary, even by Nintendo standards. Also, I won't be able to follow you live today. I'm going out to see football or soccer for you in the US. Last match day of the year in Series A. Well, dude, have a blast, Joseki. That's totally fine that you're not going to be able to be here live. Have a blast at that football or soccer game, whichever way you want to call it. Have a ton of fun, man. Sounds like a blast. And you can always come back and rewatch the stream later, right? That's what most people do, right? The majority of my views come actually after live. They're not during the live chat. A lot of people watch afterwards. So am I surprised that nothing's leaked about Switch 2 outside of the original leak where we got a little bit of information about what the hardware is going to be? Yes, I am actually a bit surprised by that because it sounds like dev kits are extensively out at this point. From all of the rumblings, all the things that we're hearing, it's not that it's just like, oh, just a couple major partners have it. It sounds like this is now essentially at like everyone major, right? Again, this isn't insider info for me. This is just the things that are being reported. It sounds like dev kits are just fully out there at this point. So I am surprised because we've had essentially no new leaks on that hardware front outside of the original one. Now, as you mentioned, Nintendo is notorious for having, insane NDAs, and on top of insane NDAs, also having very good lawyers that they are willing to utilize, right? They're one of those companies that's not afraid to sue you. They are absolutely not. People call them the Nintendo ninjas, right? This has been a known thing in like forum community for a long time. Like, they would target leakers and try and take them out. So that could be part of it. Maybe that NDA is just so scary and people are so aware that Nintendo is willing to sue you that they just don't want to take that risk. And I am surprised. But shout outs to Nintendo, man. They've been able to keep this thing mostly under wraps. And yeah, everything's looking like this thing's launching next year, and Japanese support in particular should be insane. All right, let's ask that second poll. So we're going to wrap up poll number 1. And I asked you, when will Nintendo reveal the Switch 2? The leading votes coming in at number 1 is April through June period with 51%. So I'm guessing, that's Q2. A lot of you are probably thinking they're going to announce it like right as their next fiscal year starts, right? Because their fiscal year is going to end in March. So maybe you're thinking in April, right? We're beginning the new fiscal year. This is the year we're going to launch Switch 2. So now we're going to announce it right at the start. Or maybe some of you are thinking that typical summer showcase timeline makes sense for June. So that makes sense to me. 52% of you have that vote there. Coming in at second with 26% is going to be a Q1 announcement, January through March. So you're expecting this thing right off the bat, kicking off the new year, Nintendo coming out and announcing this thing finally. 20% are saying July through September. So you're thinking an end of year announcement, or still during the summer, but pretty late, to be honest. If you're going to launch it this year, that's a pretty late time to announce. And only 2% think there's going to be no Switch 2 reveal at all in 2024. I'll tell you what, I was on the Q1 bandwagon up until like even last week. Now I'm starting to wonder, though. I'm torn. I'm like 50-50 between January through March and April through June, which those are the leading results, which I'm not surprised by because that's where I'm at, too. It's somewhere in that window. I can't see it being any later, and I also can't see Switch 2 not being next year. So interesting results there. I think most of you are spot on the money. I think it's definitely going to be within that 6-month stretch. All right, now let's ask poll number 2. And this is going to tie into the Plastic Hearts Super Chat. And that's going to be around PlayStation. And I'm going to ask, does PlayStation have an unannounced AAA first-party studio game launching in 2024? Okay. And look at the wording I'm using here, right? I'm specifically referring to a first-party studio. Now, some people might, mistake that for me saying a first-party game, right? Because technically a game like Rise of the Ronin can be seen as a first-party game. Same with Helldivers 2, because both of those games are being published directly by PlayStation. So I think it's okay to look at those as first-party games because it's actually Sony funding and publishing these, from what it appears at least. But I'm talking not just from a game that Sony's publishing from, because at the end of the day, the Helldivers studio and the Rise of the Ronin devs, they're not owned by Sony. They're not a first-party studio. They're first-party games, but not first-party studio. I'm asking, is one of those big Sony-owned studios? That's right. We're talking Naughty Dog. We're talking Sucker Punch. We're talking Bend. We're talking Insomniac. You know the studios. Does one of them have an unannounced AAA first-party game launching next year? Because as of now, the only one that's announced for next year is Concord, and we haven't seen anything about it, right? All we know is that Concord's coming, and that's a multiplayer game. So I'm asking, are you expecting something else? Something unannounced from a first-party studio launching next year? All right. JCat's in the chat. What is up, JCat? Great to see you. Thanks for always helping mod the channel and being awesome. Saying, I didn't know Benji was going live today. Well, I apologize, JCat. Unfortunately, I'm usually pretty bad at notifying people when my live days are going to be. We're probably going to get back into the rotation of Fridays because that's kind of where we were, and a lot of people are starting to like that with the consistency of the days. So I'll say for now, we're going to probably target Friday. That's the end of the week, right? And this chat's really about the big news of the week. So that kind of just makes sense. I think we're probably going to get back into the rotation of Fridays being the live chat. So, of course, that could shift a little bit. I work retail, so, things can always shift. But I would say for you guys, now that we're back in and rocking and rolling again, expect probably Fridays to be when we're back. It's great to see you, JCat. Ross Wilson, channel member. Great to see you, Ross Wilson. Hey, Benji, how do you think PS5 Pro will do compared to the PS4 Pro? More, less, or pretty similar? Ross, right now my expectation for PS5 Pro, and this is without knowing a lot of details, right? There's going to be some really big question marks around the Pro part. I think probably the biggest question mark is going to be price tag, because we're seeing the PlayStation 5 and Series X already be very expensive consoles at $500. Now, of course, there are cheaper options to PS5, and we've seen PS5 be aggressively discounted really for the last 6 months off and on. So clearly Sony's getting to a point where they can reduce that hardware cost, or they're doing something to offset it because they are, greatly discounting this hardware. But there's the big wild card of just how expensive is the Pro going to be, right? Because right now the standard PS5 price is still $500 US. If this thing's like $600, I mean, that is a lot of freaking money. You're going to get, even at $600, you can get your hardcores to buy it, right? Someone like me, I'm going to buy the PS5 Pro no matter what it costs, because I want to be able to play, the first-party PlayStation games the absolute best way I can, the highest frame rates, the best resolutions, the best graphics. So someone like me, someone hardcore, $600, they're still going to get me. But once you start going that freaking high, I mean, that's a lot of money, dude. You start to really wonder how many, and the Pros are never built for the casual, but I'm saying once you hit $600, you're starting to even be kind of just getting the super hardcores. Like, not even just the hardcore gamer. Whoops, you're getting the super hardcores for that price. So big question mark here for me is price. If they can launch this thing at like 500 or 550 and bring down the price of the standard PS5, right? Maybe that comes down to like 400 and maybe the Pro is 500. I know it sounds like a pipe dream, but let's just say Sony finds a way to do something like that. I could see it being successful. So to me, honestly, the biggest question about PS5 Pro is literally what is that price tag? If the price tag is not too insane, and they can have things like advertising, hey, Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be 60 FPS at great resolutions on this thing, and stuff like that. I could definitely see it being successful. Right now, I'll predict just a similar result to PS4 Pro. The only way I could see it doing or PS4 Pro, the only way I could see it doing better than PS4 Pro potentially is if it is at a realistic price point. So I'm talking about like $500 max. In other words, it's replacing the current PS5 price point. And it is a sizable jump, right? PS4 to PS4 Pro was essentially mostly about resolution. I owned both of those consoles, the regular PS4 and the Pro. Don't get me wrong, Pro was definitely an improvement overall on image quality, but really it was mostly resolutions that were the difference between them outside of, some other, rare case scenarios, but the biggest differentiator was strictly resolution. If somehow PS5 Pro is much more substantial, like we just see way more 60 FPS locked games, and we see way more games, that are 60 FPS plus a very good resolution, and there's some rumblings out there that this thing's going to have vastly improved ray tracing capability over the standard PS5. Like if it's like you just look at a game and you can instantly see the difference between them, and it comes in at a realistic price point, then maybe it could do better than the PS4 Pro. But I think so much depends on price. I really do. I think so much. If it's $600 or more, I'm going to be honest, I'm not predicting a lot from this thing. Ken B, channel member, great to see you, Ken B. Which games that have a 2024 release date, no specific date, are most likely to get delayed to 2025? I fear Star Wars Outlaws will get pushed. Yeah, a few off the top of my head would definitely be Star Wars Outlaws. You have to look at that just because it's a very ambitious game. That would be one that you could look at and say maybe that could slip. Another one I could see that could slip would be Arc 2. That's already been delayed once. Wouldn't shock me if Arc 2 gets delayed again. Again, this is going to be the kind of game that's very ambitious. So Arc 2 I could see slipping. I could see Concord slipping, the first-party PlayStation multiplayer game, strictly because we've literally seen nothing on this game. To this day, we don't know actually anything about this game other than like a logo and a shot of a burger and a fridge or something like that. Clearly, it's some sort of sci-fi multiplayer game, but we've never even seen a single second of what the actual game itself is. So that's another one you got to look at and wonder. I had another one on the top of my head. It was Outlaws, Concord. Oh, Avowed. I wouldn't be shocked if Avowed gets delayed from Obsidian. I'm hoping it doesn't, but the last time we saw that game, I think there was definitely some complaints about the way that it looked in terms of art style and stuff. And Obsidian even came out and said, they're still working on things. I don't expect it to look radically different than the last time we saw it, but maybe they're going to try and tighten some things up with art and get it to look more like that original reveal. I thought the original reveal of Avowed, even though we barely saw anything, I liked that art style a lot more than what we saw the last time. So maybe, you never know, maybe Avowed gets pushed, but that's a few off the top of my head. It's video games. You can always count some of these games are getting delayed. There's just no doubt. Some of them are going to. Joseki, Nintendo Switch 2 prediction and dipping for real. April announcement. So Joseki's going for an April announcement. First Friday of October release to space it out well for third parties, and Pokemon in November, launching with Mario 3D exclusive. I think that's all super realistic, Joseki. Yep. There's nothing in that prediction that looks out of control. Like, there's no way, man. Like, yeah, all of that's realistic. Whether that'll happen or not, who knows? But I think every single piece of prediction in there is very realistic to think. Split End, I've always thought of games like Rise of the Ronin as second party. Yeah, I think that's the most accurate way to describe it. It's published by Sony, but it's made by a third-party dev. So yeah, that's the most that's kind of like how Insomniac was for a long time, right? They were seen as like a second party studio because so many of the games they made were from PlayStation funded, PlayStation published, but they weren't actually owned by them. Yeah, I think the most accurate way to phrase something like Rise of the Ronin would be second party. But if someone wants to like push it and say, no, that's a first party game because Sony's the publisher of it, which means they're probably doing some funding of it, I'm all right with it. I'll let you push it there. But you can't call it a first party studio. That's why I'm making the distinction on the poll question, because it's like, no matter what, even if you want to call it a first party game, it is not a first party studio. My question is first party studio. Hamish Lee Ford, what is up, Hamish? Great to see you. Saying, hey Benji, hope you were doing great, brother. Doing so much better. Thank you for all the kind words. I am like massively back on the right track again. Massively, massively, massively. We have turned this bad boy around. So here's to making 2024 a way better year. Not just for me, but for all of you. Even if you had an awesome year, I hope your 2024 is actually even better than what your 2023 was. All right. So let's hit the free questions. We've got super chats and channel members cleared. Cameron Swear, hey Benji, what would be your next fiscal projection for PlayStation hardware sales? Let's assume they sell 21 to 24 million. You say this quarter. I think you mean obviously for this fiscal year. If I was the forecast, let's say they missed their 25 million forecast, right? Which is what you're saying here, right? Like 21 to 24. In an optimistic scenario, if I was at Sony and I wanted to be optimistic, I would predict flat. I would not predict growth, because like we talked about last chat, again, unless there's a big wild card here that we don't know about, which is always possible because we're not even in 2024 yet. So there's always the potential that there's some crazy system seller coming out next year that none of us are aware of, whether that's directly from Sony themselves or some third-party game that's like going to be a massive hardware driver. But just looking at the release slate we have right now, best case scenario to me is flat year over year. I can't see growth. Just being honest here, I can't see like big growth because they're already going to have a huge year. That's going to be honestly one of the unfortunate things about if they miss that 25 million forecast is, you're going to see some people run with it. Oh, Sony doomed. Sony didn't hit their forecast. Sony's in the trash. What are they going to do? Keep in mind that forecast was the best ever for PlayStation. If they shipped 25 million, they'd be setting an all-time record for PlayStation shipments in a single fiscal year. So if they miss it, it's not like they sold nothing. I mean, if they sell 21 to 24, that's still a massive year. So expecting growth off of that, with what looks to be, in my opinion, a weaker calendar than what we had this year, I wouldn't expect that. So again, best case scenario for Sony, I would predict flat year over year, unless they know something I don't, which of course they know a lot of things I don't, but unless, they think there's a serious hardware mover there, predict flat. And realistically, I could even see next year being a bit lower than this current year. I don't think it'll fall off the face of the earth. I don't think all of a sudden, let's go the negative scenario. I don't think you would all of a sudden see PS5 shipments collapse next year. But would I be shocked if they are down a little bit year over year? Wouldn't surprise me. And again, if Sony wants to be optimistic for shareholders and stuff like that, I would just predict flat. If I was them, I would not come out here and predict like, if you miss that 25 million, oh, we're going to ship 26 or 27 million next year. Like, you better not do that. You better predict flat. And anything above that's gravy. The casual noob gamer. But we need to see their December and stuff too, and see how that shook out year, globally, because November was an all-time record. So let's look at December. Casual Noob Gamer, hey Benji, happy everything. Hope you're doing well. I'm doing good. Casual Noob, hope you're doing good as well. What do you think of information on PS game sales over time compared to Switch game sales? Also, do you think they you're saying, do you think they compare to Xbox game sales? Well, Casual Noob, in terms of raw sales, there's a giant gap between the Sony first-party games and the Xbox first-party games. That's just the truth, right? PlayStation's selling way more first-party games than what Xbox is doing. They're just like they're not even in the same comparable universe, right? Maybe Xbox has a few outliers. There's a lot of evidence that Forza Horizon 5 sold, pretty darn strong, despite being a Game Pass game. Starfield did very well on PC. It was in the top 10 highest revenue earning games for Steam for the year. And that game didn't come out, until like the last few months of the year. So, there's some questions around how Starfield sold on console. Also, as we know, Starfield hasn't had great legs in sales. We've seen that kind of fall off, but it still generated a ton of money, which means it did sell a lot. It was in the top 10 for the entire year on Steam. So again, there's some outliers where Xbox gets some pretty good sales numbers, but in general, are they comparable to PlayStation? No. Your average PlayStation first-party game since the PS4 era on, your average Horizon game, your average God of War, your average Spider-Man, Uncharted, The Last of Us, those are just selling higher volume than the comparable Xbox games overall, like I said, outside of a few exceptions here or there. Xbox, as we know, though, are looking at things a little bit differently nowadays. I've been told that directly from Xbox executives, like not even like, oh, I heard this. I mean, I've had Xbox people tell me this. It's not just about game sales for them anymore. They do look at engagement in a big way, and which makes sense when you have a day one subscription model. Now, how do I think PlayStation compares to Nintendo? One differentiator here between the two of them, because, let's be honest, PlayStation's putting up some very impressive sales numbers for some of their first-party games. I think one thing, though, that you do need to keep in mind in the head-to-head comparison with Nintendo is, on average, Nintendo is selling those games at a higher price point. That's just the truth, right? Sony aggressively discounts games like Horizon Zero Dawn, games like Spider-Man, stuff like that. Those go down to $10, $20, I don't want to say like very rapidly, like in the first year you can get it for $10, but you know what I mean. A lot of those late legs that you're seeing from like the Horizons and things like that are coming at much cheaper price points than the average Nintendo game. As we know, Nintendo is very much a stickler when it comes to dropping price tag, right? I mean, if you go into a store right now, I think Breath of the Wild is still in the US $60. Maybe it's $50 at this point. And of course, they'll discount occasionally, right? But in general, Breath of the Wild, let's look. That was a launch game. I want to say maybe $50 new. If they went down to 40, that would be impressive, but $60. I'm looking on Target right now, and Breath of the Wild is $60 if you want that game. Physical or digital, $60. And that was a launch title. Of course, every once in a while you'll see them get discounted, but in general, Nintendo is very risk adverse in terms of dropping price tags. So that's one thing I'd keep in mind, is the PlayStation games starting to get very comparable to like these major Switch games in total units, totally. Like you're seeing that a lot, right? You're seeing a lot of 20 million sellers on PlayStation as well. But keep in mind, average price per game sold is going to be higher, at least during the Switch era, for those Nintendo games, because they very, very much don't drop price. I think we had a super chat come in. We did. Kellegrim, good friend of mine. Great to see you, Kellegrim, with also a very generous one, a $20 super chat. Holy cow, Kellegrim. That is way, you don't ever have to do anything like that, buddy. Glad to see another live chat. Hope you and the fam had some good holidays. For Switch 2, I want to see the new Metroid and a new entry to the F-Zero franchise. Anything you want to see on better hardware? Well, first of all, I'm way with you on Metroid, man. This is going to sound like blasphemy to some of you big Nintendo fans. I had never played a Metroid Prime game. Now, I'd played other Metroid games, but the Metroid Prime series, I had never played one until that remastered that came out this year, Metroid Prime 1 Remastered, and I loved it. I was amazed at how well it held up for an old game. Obviously, they had redone lots of textures, things like that. I don't mean just the visuals, I mean the game itself. I was amazed how well that game held up. I thought it was tremendous. Don't get me wrong, I was excited for Prime 4 when they announced it, but me, not having played those Prime games, I'd played games like Metroid Dread and even like, Super Metroid back in the day. But I had never played the Prime games for some reason. I never owned a GameCube, so that was probably part of it. And that was tremendous. I thought it was incredible. So Prime 4 has massively shot up on my anticipation list. So I'm right with you with Metroid Prime, man. A franchise that I'm very excited to see on Switch. Switch 2, I mean. Obviously Zelda, right? Whatever the next Zelda is, it's going to be incredible to see it on better hardware, but that's such an easy answer. Here's one that's a little out there that some people might not expect me to say. I'm pretty excited to see the next 3D Kirby game, man. I loved, what is it called? The Forgotten Land? And I thought that game was gorgeous. I think it's Kirby and the Forgotten Land, right? I loved that game. I was really impressed with that one. It was way better than I expected. Yeah, Forgotten Land. I loved that. I thought it was gorgeous on the Switch 1. So there's one that's a little out there, right? Not your normal basics that you expect. Oh, I'm excited to see the next Zelda, said every Nintendo fan ever. So Kirby, as long as it's 3D, the 2D Kirbys are cool or whatever, but I thought they made a big jump with Forgotten Land. I thought that was a fantastic game. So next Kirby, for something that's, not the expected ones. Very excited for that. And thanks for that super chat, buddy. All right, let's run another poll because, like I said, I have a bunch of polls lined up. So we're going to end this poll. This one was about PlayStation. We've already done a Nintendo poll. We're now doing the PlayStation. Now we got an Xbox One next. And I asked you, does PlayStation have an unannounced AAA first-party studio game launching in 2024? In other words, something from Santa Monica, Naughty Dog, Insomniac, Bend, whatever. 52% of you say yes, you do think there's something. And 48% of you say no. So almost a 50-50 split. You guys are like right on that line. I'm going to side with yes, just because it would be so shocking to me for Sony to go an entire year without one. In terms of a single player game, right? Like as of now, they have Concord announced for next year. Again, though, that's on the games I think might slip, considering we've never seen anything about this game. So, yeah, it's close, man. It's close. I'm going to side with yes, and it's strictly just because it would be so crazy to me if they don't. But I don't think the people that are voting no, it's unrealistic, because as of now, it just doesn't look like it, but we'll see. All right, poll number 3 for the live chat. And this one's going to be about Xbox, because they actually do have a bunch of games announced for next year. And I'm going to say, which Xbox exclusive title gets the most success / engagement next year? All right, we got Hellblade 2. These games are all officially announced for next year, by the way, but some of them could, of course, slip. We've got Avowed. We've got Flight Simulator 2024. And we've got, what's the other one called? Flight Sim and this other one are like Rise of the Ronin and stuff are, by the way. They're not actually made by Xbox Studios. So they're like second party games. But this question's not about first party specific. It's just Xbox exclusive. Which one's going to get the highest engagement? What's that game called? Towerborn? Isn't that what it's called? Yeah. Yeah. So both Flight Sim and Towerborn are more like second party games, because they're developed by third party studios. But since they have 4 announced, it's an easy one to make a poll, because these are all announced for 2024. So which Xbox exclusive title gets the most success / engagement next year? Read into that however you will. Success / engagement, we're talking player numbers, reviews, whatever. Just in total, which will be seen as the most successful title of the bunch if they all release next year. We got Hellblade 2, Avowed, Flight Sim 2024, and Towerborn. Dropping that in the chat now. All right. Back to your free questions. How long have we been going? Oh, we still got time. We're still going for a little while, baby. Johnny G22, what's up, Benji? What is up, Johnny G22? Great to see you, man. What up, everyone in chat? Don't forget to like the video. I always appreciate the likes. I never spam out the saying like the video or subscribe, but it does help the YouTube algorithm. If you're here in chat and you're enjoying it, hit that like button. Though it really is a bummer how YouTube has changed the way live content shows up. They've really deprioritized it, which I think is a huge bummer. Live stuff I've noticed does not get recommended in feeds as much for just like the For You stuff on YouTube. It's usually more pre-made content videos. I noticed that not because of my content. I'm talking about the people I subscribe to. Sometimes I have to like dig, like I actually have to go to their channel. Like we're talking after the fact, after they're live, I got to go to the channel, then I got to click the live tab, and then I got to find the live video. Like it's so dumb. I really hate how YouTube has changed that because it didn't always used to be like that. Having live separated from the the regular videos, I think is so stupid, and it's not rewarding to content creators. I think it should all just show up. When you click videos, it should be the live videos and the pre-made videos just in a line. Separating it really does a disservice to people who mostly make live content, right? I very rarely make a pre-made video. It's almost all live, and whenever you click on my channel, you know, a lot of it looks like I haven't made a YouTube video in a long time, right? Because you just see the videos first, and I rarely make that. So unless you click over to live, you don't realize that, you know, this dude's making stuff every week. So very annoying, very, very annoying that YouTube has done that. It's been like that for a while. Falco Lombardi, thoughts on Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2? I absolutely loved it. It's one of my favorite seasons of any show I've ever watched. And now I get what some people's criticism of this season is. By and large, I think it was received fantastically well. You can just tell by the viewership. The viewership numbers for Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2 are absolutely insane. On Crunchyroll, it's been more popular than One Piece this entire season, which is crazy. It's basically usually, you know, One Piece is you know, sitting there as top dog. Basically, all of Season 2, Jujutsu Kaisen's been a #1 on Crunchyroll, even above One Piece, which is just crazy, crazy, crazy numbers. Doing insane numbers. The manga is continuing to sell fantastic. It was one of my favorite seasons of any show I've ever watched. And if you notice, I didn't say one of my favorite seasons of anime. I said any show I've ever watched. That's live action, anime, whatever. I loved Season 2. Now, the one criticism you do kind of see from some people about Season 2 of JJK, and I get it, it doesn't bother me, and I'll explain why, but the one criticism that you do kind of see is I wish there was more, you know, storytelling in Season 2 and focus on story, because this is no spoilers, guys, for anyone that does plan on getting into JJK. Season 2 is insane fight after insane fight after insane fight, just over and over. And I mean, I've almost never seen a battle shonen like this where it just goes so all out for an entire season. It is like kind of wild. And again, no spoilers, but it's just back to back to back to back to back gigantic fights. Not even just like, oh, you know, we fight for like 2 minutes and there's like a cool little segment. I'm talking like full episode, just battles. It goes full battle shonen. And but it's animated so gorgeously. The fights are just absolutely insane. And I love the characters of Jujutsu Kaisen. So even if we didn't get as much story as maybe I or some people would hope in Season 2, I do just still love the characters of that universe so much. And the other thing, again, no spoilers, but JJK pulls no punches, man. You know, you hear a lot of stuff about plot armor in shows. JJK has zero plot armor. Plot armor essentially does not exist in the world of JJK. So I loved it. It's literally one of my favorite seasons of any show ever. Could it had a little bit more story and not just been insane battles for like 20 episodes in a row? Sure. But the fights were so hype, and the characters are, you know, characters I love so much. I loved it. I absolutely loved JJK Season 2. I cannot wait for Season 3. Casual Noob Gamer saying, hello, Benji. What's up, Casual Noob? Shelly, what's up, Shelly? 2024 will be the year of culture. Lots of games set in and made by other countries/cultures Persia, Black Myth for China, Stellar, Korea, Zhao, Africa, Helldivers, Sweden, etc. Diverse games. That's awesome. You love to see it. And a lot of that stuff I'm excited for. Black Myth looks super awesome. I know there's some controversy around the developers themselves, but the game itself, Black Myth, looks awesome, representing China. The new Prince of Persia looks super, super good. Stellar Blade, I'm super hyped for. That Zhao game, looked really, really cool at the Game Awards. Helldivers is the one. I'm sorry, I'm not super excited for Helldivers. I hope it's awesome. But yeah, you do love to see it, right? You want to see stuff from all over the world, so this is great. It's a great point, Shelly. Great point. I'm not sure how to pronounce this username. Minkafty? I know that's wrong. If it's releasing in 2024, I imagine they reveal it in Q1. This is for Switch 2. Q1 for October, November release. Yeah, I mean, I could see it. Peter thinks that is going with June 2024 reveal for Switch 2. September 2024 release, and you're hoping that's comparable to Xbox Series S. That's kind of what I'm expecting. Now, is raw horsepower going to be at the same level as Series S? I'm not sure. I kind of think that when you play the Switch 2 docked, you'll probably get a very similar result to the Series S. It would be my expectation. Probably with some trade-offs here or there. Maybe some stuff a little better than Series S, some stuff a little worse. Part of that, of what's going to help with that's DLSS. DLSS doesn't fix everything for you, but it is a very useful tool. So that's my expectation. Hey, anything better would be amazing. But I think when you play this thing docked, it's going to be comparable. When I say comparable, not exact, but comparable probably to a Series S in terms of just what you're seeing on screen. Dave thinks September for the next-gen Switch. And Dave also thinks more third-party games like Call of Duty, Madden, and even GTA 5. And then Minkafty, if PS5 Pro is also coming in holiday 2024, maybe they do try and get the jump and launch Q3. Yeah, very much maybe. Anthony Johnson, I'm slightly nervous Nintendo is just going to launch the Switch 2 with a Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Ultimate Edition instead of a new Mario Kart, right? I mean, they've got to release a new Mario Kart for this thing. Listen, it's incredible what they've done with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but it's time for Mario Kart 9, dude. It is time. It is time. Henry K 3K, I hate Nintendo the most out of the big three, but they are to be feared. Yeah, they've become a monster, whether you like Nintendo games or not. The Switch is just absolutely incredible. It's absolutely incredible what they've done with the Switch. Absolutely incredible. Oh, we had a super chat coming in. $5.99 super chat from Tonsi K. Great to see you, Tonsi K. Thank you for the super chat, man. Good to see you again. Going to bring now my daughter to bed and listening to your stream. Have a good oh man, that is such a cool comment. So you're saying, good to see me. You're putting your daughter to bed and you're listening to my stream while you put her to bed. Tonsi K, dude. Hey, dude, what a great parent you are right there, Tonsi. Putting your daughter to bed. And I can relate to this so much. Whenever I put my daughter to bed, she's 5, so she likes to have somebody, sleep in there with her while she's falling asleep and everything. And, dude, Tonsi, I can relate to this so much. I listen to many of my favorite streamers and content creators whenever I'm laying down with her, waiting her to go to bed. So, Tonsi, this is like a special super chat and comment to me because as a girl dad myself, I respect everyone out there that's being great parents and doing this stuff. So, Tonsi, you're the man. You're awesome, and I'm glad I can be part of your night. Highlander with a 10 super chat. Thank you so much, Highlander. That's very generous. My daughter discovered anime watching Sword Art Online with my wife. Yeah, Sword Art's a huge one. Just want to warn you, my daughter wants to bring a boy she likes home. Oh no. To meet me. Your day is coming. I just hung my new axe. Hilarious super chat. Oh, I know. I'm already dreading it, bro. I'm already dreading it. You know, my daughter's only 5, so hopefully I've got a long wait, right? Hopefully she doesn't even start talking about boys for another, if it's my way, another 15 years. But yeah, no, I'm dreading it, man, right? I'm dreading it. But, you know, listen, my thing is, as long as whenever she hits that age that it's no one sketchy, you know. But dude, yeah, I'm dreading it. I know it's coming. And yeah, that's awesome. I'm the only one in my family that watches anime. But Sword Art Online is a huge one. Yeah, that brought so many people into anime. That thing is huge. But as of now, I'm the only one in my fam that watches anime. And good luck to you. Hopefully your daughter brings home a very nice, good guy. All right. Super chats are cleared. Oh, and I missed a super chat from Highlander. Apologies. Highlander had a 2 in there that said, I hope you and the family had a great Christmas. We did. We did. My daughter was stoked. She got a Barbie dream house and lost her mind. Literally lost her mind. She got a new vanity because she loves putting on makeup. And she got a Barbie dream house, and she literally went crazy for both of them. So we did. We had a good Christmas, man. Hope you did too, Highlander. And I think we had a channel member comment. David Taylor, Hellblade or Flight Sim will get the critical acclaim. Avowed will get the players. For my Xbox question. Great, great thing. Yeah, let's look. Let's look at the poll results right now. I said, which Xbox exclusive title gets the most success / engagement next year? As of now, we've got Hellblade 2 leading the pack at 49%. We got Avowed coming in at 36%. Flight Sim coming in at 11%. And Towerborn coming in at 4%. I definitely agree with Towerborn being in last place. Not that I'm saying that Towerborn I don't think is, you know, I'm not saying it's going to be a bad game. It's just in terms of acclaim and players, I do think that's right, that it'll probably be the lowest of the bunch. I could see Hellblade 2 having the most critical acclaim of these bunch, but Avowed and Flight Sim actually maybe getting more players. You know, people underestimate how big Flight Sim is. Like, every time I pull up Flight Sim, it's still always in the top most popular on Game Pass. Like, let's look right now. I bet you it's still... this every once in a while it does bounce out, but let's see if it's in the most popular list right now on Game Pass. And think about it, that game came out a long time ago. It might not be right now. Nope, it is. I don't know if you can see this. Boom, Flight Sim right there, most popular. It doesn't... It's like basically almost a perma stay there. Like, Flight Sim does get kind of crazy player numbers. So I could see Hellblade having the most critical acclaim. If the critical acclaim is super crazy, like we're talking like a Game of the Year contender or something, then maybe it can shoot up there in players. But I would kind of think Avowed and Flight Sim gets more players than Hellblade. Because Flight Sim, again, it's like a perma stay on most popular list. Avowed's a big RPG. People like RPGs. They get usually high player numbers. So that's how I'll predict right now. Hellblade 2 being the most critical success. Avowed and Flight Sim having the most player success. But you never know. Hellblade might, you know, surprise on players as well. You never know. Okay. Back to some more free questions. I'm going to go for about 10 more minutes and then we're going to bounce, guys. About 10 more minutes of this chat. Where did I leave off? So actually, I'm going to ask you another question because I had one more poll I really wanted to run because there's one I'm super curious about. So I'm going to actually end the Xbox poll. Hellblade 2 ended up winning the poll with Avowed in second, then Flight Sim in third, and Towerborn in fourth. All right, I'm going to squeeze one more poll in since we got about 10 minutes left because this is another one I'm super curious about your guys' thoughts on. Will Final Fantasy VII Rebirth outsell Final Fantasy 16. I actually have a surprising take on this. I think it'll be surprising to some people. Yes or no? Well, Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth outsell Final Fantasy 16. We'll just say like for this year, right? Looking at what 16 sold, looking at what 7 Rebirth sold, like launch aligned, you know, who knows what legs look like 5 years from now. But like what Final Fantasy 16 was doing in its sort of sales, you know, for the windows that we have compared to 7 Rebirth. I'll give you guys my take after you get some votes in. Will Final Fantasy VII Rebirth outsell Final Fantasy 16? All right. Peter, Benji's nailing it on the head. Ronan, etc. are third-party studios, but games are first-party. Going with no in regards to 2024, I simply don't see Sony Studios being ready for a reveal and release. Yeah, like I said, if some people want to call it first-party games, I won't fight with them over it. You know, but yeah, second party is the technical way to say it, right? If you want to be 100% technically correct, second party would be the best way to say it. Plastic Hearts Podcast, man, whatever happened to the Uncharted sequel rumors being made by another Sony dev? Nothing ever came out of that. Yeah, so we found out, you know, from a Jason Schreier report that Sony aggressively was trying to get that made. They tried to get Sony Bend to make it, but Bend basically refused for a while and then eventually started like some pre-production work on it and then got out of that again. And then there were some rumblings that Sony was trying other studios as well. I mean, here's the thing. I don't blame Sony. Uncharted just sitting on the side it is business malpractice, right? There should be a new Uncharted game. And I know, like, if you look at it strictly from an art standpoint, you could say Uncharted 4 ended so well. You know, there's no reason to go back to that franchise. Naughty Dog doesn't want to do it. At the end of the day, though, if you have, especially with how expensive games are to make nowadays, if you have an IP that big that's a guaranteed seller, doesn't matter what the next Uncharted game is, it's going to sell a ton. And it's just dormant, it's just bad business. It's just bad business. So they need a new Uncharted. Sony knows they need a new Uncharted, which is why I understand why they've been trying to aggressively get one of their studios to tackle it, because someone does need to do it. But I think the issue that they're having, Plastic Hearts, is no one wants to do it, which is a surprise to me. But I guess a lot of these studios just want to work on their own IP or create new IP, and they don't want to take someone else's IP. But they got to convince someone to do it. They got to. There needs to be a new Uncharted. And I don't think it needs to be Nathan Drake, right? I do think that they had a beautiful end to Nathan Drake's story. There's no real reason to revisit him. You could do a spinoff with his daughter, or there's other characters in that universe. You could do games about them. But no Uncharted at all. If it doesn't happen at all this generation, let's say we go the whole gen and there's no Uncharted game, big bad business. Just bad business. And that's not me blaming Sony, because we know Sony's actually trying to get one made. It's just they got to try and find a partner on that. Peter 420, Benji, if PS5 Pro has the same CPU/RAM but upgraded GPU, do you think Grand Theft Auto 6 will hit 60 FPS mode? Thanks. Ooh, that's hard to say. Because we don't know how this is going to run on a base PS5 yet, right? Not really. I mean, honestly, I'm assuming Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be locked 30 FPS on PS5. If they have a 60 FPS mode even on the base PS5, amazing, but I'm not going in expecting that. I think people need to be very careful on expecting these big open world games to have 60 FPS modes on console or on base PS5. Doesn't mean it's impossible, and of course it's going to depend on the game, but like, am I expecting the next Witcher on Unreal Engine 5 to have a 60 FPS mode? No. If it does, amazing. But like on base PS5, am I expecting that? No. I'm just assuming 30 FPS lock. Same thing for GTA 6. I'm assuming 30 FPS lock. But we don't really know how this thing's going to run on a PS5 yet. My guess, and it's a total guess, I'm guessing that at the very minimum, the CPU probably needs a bump in terms of clock speeds. I'm expecting it to be the actual same CPU, but just running at higher clocks. That's what I'm expecting. RAM, I believe it's already leaked. It is faster RAM. I don't know if we know how much more RAM it has. That I do not believe we know, but I think we do know that the speed of the RAM is faster. And the CPU, like I said, I'm expecting exact same actual hardware, but just running at higher clocks. So you'll get some boost off of it, off of the base PS5 CPU. Probably not like a massive gap, but you'll probably get a little bit more out of the CPU if it's running at higher clocks. Split End with 2024 in sight. Tell us about the games you're excited for. Dude, there's so many. Like, I'll tell you what, 2024 right now to me looks like a worse year than 2023 overall. But again, a lot of stuff could still get announced for next year. But me saying that, there's some games I'm incredibly hyped for. Dragon's Dogma 2, ultra hyped for. Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth. Incredibly excited for. I'm the weirdo that does not like the Yakuza beat-up games. I just don't. I just don't like the gameplay. You know, I like the story and I like the universe. I've tried so many times to get into the Yakuza games, but the gameplay it felt so archaic to me. But I loved, Like a Dragon, which is now the name of the franchise in the West. I know it was called that in Japan, but it was Yakuza in the West. Now it's Like a Dragon. But Yakuza Like a Dragon, the first one that went, full-on JRPG. It's literally one of my favorite JRPGs of all time. Like, I would literally put it in my top 5. So Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, out of my mind hyped for. Hellblade 2, I loved the original Hellblade. Hellblade 2 I'm incredibly excited for. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I thought Remake was incredible. I've beaten Remake, I think, 3 times. So Rebirth, incredibly excited for. There's a lot. You know what's funny? Next year, to me, looks like it's carried by Japan. To me, it just does. Like, when I look at my most anticipated list, like, Dragon's Dogma 2, Japanese game. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Japanese game. Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, Japanese game. Metaphor, ReFantazio, Japanese game. Persona 3 Reload, Japanese game. Rise of the Ronin, Japanese game. Like, so many of the games I'm excited for next year are coming from Japan. And some of that's going to be personal. Of course, there's some I'm excited for from Western studios. Senua Saga, Star Wars Outlaws, Avowed. But to me, next year's Tekken 8 is another huge game that's going to be coming from Japan. To me, man, just 2024 looks like a Japanese year. That's what it looks like, at least. All right, we got like 5 minutes left. Max Mini, hey Benji, does first party matter as long as you bring exclusives? PS4 Gen only had a handful of first party, but had great third party exclusives to fill the gaps, just like now, Bloodborne, Death Stranding, Final Fantasy VII. I don't think it's like, yeah, I think you're pretty spot on, right? As long as you have exclusives, does it really matter if they're coming from first party or not? To be honest, not really, right? I think the only criticism that's coming directly, because you're seeing a lot of criticism being targeted towards, PlayStation first party itself, even within the Sony community, right? Like, I see a lot of PlayStation fans, kind of criticizing Sony's output right now from first party, not total exclusives, first party. And I think the main reason for that is because, and I'm not saying this is fair or unfair or whatever, I think it's just because there's so many studios that just don't even have games announced and haven't for a long time, right? I think it's because Bend has not a single announced game right now. It's because Naughty Dog doesn't have a single announced game right now. Santa Monica doesn't have a single announced game right now. Guerrilla doesn't have a single announced game right now. Sucker Punch doesn't have a single announced game right now. Media Molecule doesn't have a single announced game right now. Like, I'm just going to, it's almost all their studios have no games announced. And a lot of these, again, make sense. It's whenever I say this stuff, it's not me being like, Santa Monica, you just launched Ragnarok. Why do you not have another game announced, right? It's not that. I'm just saying when you look at the Sony studios as a whole, you just look at it and there's like nothing there that's announced. Even though there's tremendously talented studios, there's just nothing on the calendar from them. And I think that's why you're starting to see people be a little aggressively critical of Sony's first party. It's just for that reason. Listen, if they come out with an insane showcase next year and they announce 4 giant, they announce the next Naughty Dog game and they announce Sucker Punch's next game and they announce, what Bend Studios working on. Like, if they come out there and do this, like, this whole conversation changes. And in terms of you're asking, I think more about just like actual sales and momentum for the brand, yeah, as long as you've got exclusives coming to sell consoles, right? Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is going to sell a lot of PlayStations in Japan. Like, they don't have to come from first party. But I just think that's where a lot of the discussion's coming from in regards to the negative feelings towards Sony's first party specifically. It's just because they have, like, nothing announced. There's just nothing on there. You look at it, and it's just an empty slate. And I think that's why. I think that's why people are starting to be like, yo, Sony, what's going on here? People just want some announcements. El Nini, Benji, are we getting a PS5 Pro? Sure sounds like it. Not insider information from me, but considering we've had both Tom Henderson and Jeff Grubb corroborate it, I believed it as soon as it was Henderson because his track record with PlayStation hardware is absolutely insane. But once you had Grubb also corroborate that, then yeah, it seems like it's a lock. Whenever you have both of them both saying it's coming, then yeah, it again, not first-hand info from me, but yes, it looks like September next year is the targeted date. Anthony Johnson, Forza Motorsport 2023 was sent out to die. The fact it didn't even launch with music while you're racing is insane. You know what? This is a crazy situation. I've almost never seen something like this, where the spin-off game has completely and utterly overtaken the original. In other words, what do I mean by that? People just want Forza Horizon. I mean, Forza Motorsport is a much newer game, and if you look at the popularity on Game Pass, like Forza Horizon 5 is just way ahead of it. Right now on most popular lists on Game Pass, Forza Horizon 5 still top 3. That game came out years ago. Guess what? The only 2 games it's behind, Grand Theft Auto 5 and Minecraft. Literally 2 of the biggest games of all time. And then it's Forza. Like, the staying power and the popularity of Forza Horizon's insane. Meanwhile, Forza Motorsport, Forza Horizon 4 is above Forza Motorsport. Okay? 4 and 5 are both above Motorsport. So you got Forza Horizon 5 coming in at number 3. Then you've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then you got Forza Horizon 4 coming in at number 9. So you've got 2 Forza Horizon games in the top 10. Then you've got Forza Motorsport 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. It's at number 15. And you have Forza Horizon 4 and 5 both significantly ahead of it. And they're both older games. It is wild how essentially Forza Horizon has just completely buried Forza Motorsport. Even if Forza Motorsport was incredible, and I know there's some pushback to Motorsport, it just wouldn't compete. Like, Horizon has just so utterly taken over that franchise. It is crazy. Like, everyone just wants Forza Horizon 6. I'm sure, like, there's hardcore racing sim fans that, you know, were super excited for Forza Motorsport. But your general gamer, they just want Forza Horizon 6, man. Like, Forza Motorsport, great. Forza Horizon 6, where's that at? So it is pretty crazy. Yeah, it is crazy how Horizon has completely taken over that franchise. They're not even comparable anymore. Horizon truly is the... I know it sounds so bad because Turn 10 is a very talented studio and they're the ones who created Forza, but let's just be realistic here. Forza's brand now is Forza Horizon. It ain't Motorsport. It was already leaning that way, but the gap between Horizon 5 and what Motorsport is doing right now is crazy. Like, Forza is Forza Horizon. Anthony Johnson, if Nintendo revives Star Fox, I will become the biggest Nintendo fanboy on the planet. All right, guys, we got to go because I got to get ready for work and stuff like that. All right, thank you for a fun chat. I apologize to the free questions I could not get to today. JCat banned someone? JCat, I'm not sure what it was. I'm guessing, was it somebody being rude again? I don't know. What's with some people popping off in chat lately, man? What is going on? What is going on? Usually the chats are super positive. I didn't see what was being posted, but the last couple weeks we got randomly people going aggro in chat. Calm down, everybody. Calm down. I didn't see it, so I can't speak to it, but apparently people have been popping off in chat. Everybody just relax. But yeah, I gotta go, guys, just because I gotta go to work and stuff. I wish I could go longer. Today's actually a pretty short stream. I would usually like to go more like a full hour and a half to like even 2 hours. Last week was a 2 hour stream, but I gotta get ready for work, unfortunately. So I have to cut it there. I know it's a short one. I apologize, guys. If I didn't get to your questions, because there was a lot of free ones I didn't hit today, roll that over into next week and hopefully I can get to them. But I got to bounce. All super chats got hit. All channel members got hit. All right, guys. I got to bounce. As always, if you like doing these live chats, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We do one every single week, except for whenever I'm being a total head case. Oh, poll. Oh, and there's a super chat. All right, let me read the poll. Then we're hitting Highlander super chat, and then I have to go. All right, so the poll I asked you guys, wow, I thought I was going to have a hot take here. Apparently not. I asked, will Final Fantasy VII Rebirth outsell Final Fantasy 16? Overwhelmingly, 85% of you voted yes, with only 15% voting no. I thought this was going to be a close, like 50-50 battle. I am with the yes. Yeah, I think Rebirth is going to definitely outsell Final Fantasy 16. I agree 1,000%. I expect Rebirth to outsell 16. Now, will Rebirth be able to sell as much as original Remake? That remains to be seen. But will it outsell 16? I'm with the 85%. Yeah, I think Rebirth is going to sell more copies than Final Fantasy 16, which is pretty wild, right? The remakes selling more than the brand new game. And I know Rebirth it's not like the way you can traditionally think of a remake because, spoiler alert, it's like almost a sequel at the same time. But yeah, pretty darn interesting. And I'm with you guys. Yeah, I think Rebirth's going to outsell 16. Okay, and then the super chat, and then I have to go. Highlander with a 5 super chat. Thank you so much, Highlander. Gave my wife a Quest 3. I've got a Quest 3 and it's amazing. Discovered that I could play Game Pass on it. Yup, they just added that. It's actually a brand new edition. They just did that, I think, last week or the week before. Now you can do Game Pass cloud gaming on it, which is crazy. How have I not heard this? My wife loves VR on the PC. I'm also a big VR fan myself. I'm a big fan of it. I get why it's still pretty niche and why it hasn't been able to hit mass market. I think a big part of that is the whole chicken and the egg scenario. There's just not enough big games to sell to the casual market, but then companies are afraid to make the big games because there's not enough VR demand. You know what I mean? It's almost like an Ouroboros, right? It's like the snake eating its own tail. There's not enough big games to sell this to the mainstream market. Well, we're not going to make the big games because the market doesn't support it. So it's literally like an Ouroboros just eating its own tail. But the few like really awesome Quest games that we get or PSVR 2 games that we get, I think they're amazing experiences. I have a Quest 3, I have a Quest 2, I have a Quest 1, I had the PSVR 1. Super cool. And yes, you probably haven't heard of it, Highlander, because this is a brand new thing. Game Pass and cloud streaming from Xbox coming to Quest is brand new. They announced it a little bit back at one of the meta events, but it's not a big known thing because it just happened. Like they just launched it on the Quest 3. So super exciting. Okay, I got to go. I've got to bail. Everyone, subscribe if you haven't already. Like the video if you haven't already. Follow me on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it if you haven't already. Though I'm sure everyone here already does because that's where most people follow me. As always, stay safe. Play some games. I will be back next week for next week's chat. Hopefully we actually have some, news in next week's chat. But I thought we had a good conversation here considering the lack of complete news. Thanks for the polls and everyone. As always, love you guys. I will see you either very soon here on Twitter/X or I'll see you in the new year next week on YouTube, everyone.